Climate change conspiracy theory about cataclysmic changes in Earth's magnetic field goes viral on TikTok. So I've seen some of this stuff. Now, I don't have TikTok on my phone, but I've seen clips of this on YouTube that people have been talking about. And the reason why this happened, we'll read the article here in a minute. Welcome, Creek League. Is this guy Jimmy Corsetti. So Jimmy Corsetti is this kind of like alternative history kind of guy on YouTube, kind of like Uncle Jim a little bit. But he talks more about, well, that's not true. I guess he talked about kind of ancient history stuff. I'm not super familiar, but I've seen some of his more viral videos. We've gone over some of his viral videos here. His most viral takes are the site of Atlantis, possibly in northwestern Africa. And then the fact that potentially there was a giant tsunami that washed over northern Africa. And it's pretty compelling stuff. The area he thinks is Atlantis is called the Richat structure. Which some people are convinced that it's just a geologic feature, but not Jimmy. Jimmy thinks it's the site of Atlantis, and he could be right. We don't know, but he did a video recently talking about how this displacement of water washed over northern Africa. And one of the things that he suggested was, potentially there was a pole shift. So pole shift is when, there's two different kinds of pole shifts, which is what this may be convoluting here now. There's a magnetic pole shift, which is something that might happen like pretty frequently, which is a magnetic north and south poles move around, and then may every 80, 100 years, they're thinking, just flip and flop. And although it hasn't happened in the last 80 or 100 years. It's something that might happen. Now, a physical pole shift is very different, and that's something that's kind of hotly contested. And that's a theory that a guy named Charles Hapgood had, who was a friend of Einstein's, and he put that forward back in the 50s, I believe. And a physical pole shift is where the Earth's, crust destabilizes from the mantle, and the physical north and south shift. So they slide around. And that obviously will create havoc everywhere on fucking planet Earth, if that happens. And that was the plot of the movie 2012. Yeah. And that is something that's been doing the rounds, I guess, on TikTok and on social media. And this guy kind of talks about... So we're going to go over this article. I'm just going to comment on this quickly. There's a lot of conspiracy theories that suggest pole shifts. Some people suggest the sun causes it. Some people think it's just like a cyclical thing that happens as we go through like the galactic center. Some people think Nibiru causes it, that it coming close to planet Earth periodically is the source and force that causes the shift. That one, I'm more acquainted with that theory. That's obviously pretty wacky, but I don't know. There's some stuff potentially to suggest that in ancient history that something like that may have happened. It's pretty shoddy, honestly, like just kind of biblical stories about, the earth standing still for a day or wobbling like a drunkard. Maybe. In regards to, welcome DM Leak, in regards to Jimmy suggesting this, I'm not sold on the whole physical pole shift thing, and there's one reason why I'm not sold on it. We don't know the periodicity of it theoretically, but if it were to happen every couple thousand years, even if it was every 10,000 years, there are some sites, like ancient sites, that are like 11, 12,000 years old, and they still line up with like the spring, like fall, winter, summer equinoxes. And in my mind, and I might just be fucking stupid, and there's a greater possibility I'm just stupid than this isn't actually reality, but in my mind, if the north and south physical poles were shifting around, that would throw all of those ancient sites out of alignment. So you wouldn't have those alignments anymore at like the spring, summer, fall, winter equinoxes. Like they wouldn't line up, and they still do. And actually, Stonehenge still lines up. I think Göbekli Tepe may even be lined up, which is where I was getting at. That Göbekli Tepe is 11 plus 12,000 plus years old. So unless this is on like a 12,000 year cycle of pole shifts, you know, I don't know. I'm not sold, and I don't know what his dating for this supposed cataclysm in Africa is. But anyway, let's just read the fucking article instead of me just rambling over it. I mean, you can already tell this guy's just like shitting on Joe Rogan. This is science. Right. Revitalized by an appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, the Adam and Eve story is being used to falsely attribute climate change to shifts in Earth's poles. He'll talk about the Adam and Eve story here, so we don't need to fucking go over that again. Joe Rogan's podcast is fueling a bizarre TikTok conspiracy theory that falsely attributes climate change impacts to cyclical changes in Earth's magnetic field, seemingly violating the app's new climate misinformation policy. Well, I can already tell these people are idiots. The climate change rhetoric. Oh my, I'm late. The pyramids are only 50 years old. I'm so sorry. Oh my God. Dinosaur bones are fake. Space is fake. What are we talking about? Are we talking about someone attacking a prominent kind of alternative thinker on YouTube named Jimmy Corsetti? He was on Joe Rogan's podcast with Ben from Uncharted X, who has brilliant research. Ben proved potentially a week or two ago. I'll pull this up. We'll get to ancient aliens later. I can pull this up. Ben may have proved that there was a group of people back a couple thousand years ago that were using technology at about around the level we're using now, i.e. like 3D printing vases. He had these two NASA engineers analyze this vase from ancient Egypt. It's impossibly crafted is what the determination was. So I'll find that here in a minute. Ben Shapiro. No, unfortunately not. It's not Ben Shapiro that they're taking apart here. Let's see. Inspired by the January 18th episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, content creators have lashed onto claims made in pseudoscientific book called The Adam and Eve Story, The History of Cataclysms. Along with pushing the cataclysmic pole hypothesis, the book claims that Jesus lived in India for nearly 18 years and was abducted by aliens in a space vehicle after his crucifixion. Between January and April, Media Matters identified 7 viral clips from the Joe Rogan Experience episode discussing the conspiracy theory, which garnered over 20 million cumulative views on TikTok. The video features clips of Rogan discussing the book with the independent researcher Jimmy Corsetti, who runs the YouTube channel Bright Insight, and Ben Van Kerwick, who runs the channel Uncharted X. Let's see what these people say. Joe Rogan keeps platforming conspiracy theorists and skeptics of human-caused climate change driving misinformation. That sounds like the biggest pile of fucking hot horse shit I've ever heard in my life. If you guys are so smart, go on Joe Rogan. If you've been putting forward these great world-changing explanations as to what the fuck's going on with our climate, why doesn't Joe Rogan have you on? Oh, that's because you're just cowtailing to some fucking broken-ass narrative. Shut the fuck up. In the January 18th episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, the host brought up the Adam and Eve theory and asked Corsetti how much of that is agreed upon, that there could be a time where the magnetic poles actually shift. So already we're conflating things. Corsetti replied that this is science, explaining the Adam and Eve story. Okay, the theory on that is that it happens in cycles of 6,500 years and that it's a 90-degree flip, but 6 days later, on the 7th day, it corrects itself. He continued to describe a planet flip, 90 degrees, and that because of it, the Earth essentially does a standstill. The sun will be direct, will basically stay in the same spot, causing heating like we've never experienced, and that the wind and the waters continue with their momentum because essentially the wind travels at approximately 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. So the theory is that when the event happens, it's going to be cataclysmic. So already we're off, like conflating, confusing the fuck out of even what they said in this article. So, okay, Joe said that there could be a time where the magnetic poles drifting and shifting is something that we understand fairly well. And just recently, like fucking last year, they started to figure out, oh, they may periodically flip. That's the magnetic poles, okay? So not like physical north, but magnetic north, which has drifted significantly in the last 60 years. Okay, so we established that. What Jimmy's talking about here is a physical pole shift. So Hapgood, he's talking about Hapgood here, right? More recently, in regards to the magnetic pole shift, some Chinese researchers may have found that the core of our Earth has stopped moving. So, I mean, that may play a role in why the magnetic, poles flip around. But that's constantly conflated. I see that on social media. I mean, Christ's sake, I'm not a fucking scientist. I'm a philosopher. I mean, it's not that hard to grasp those two concepts here. Here's a video on it. Corsetti's nonsensical explanation was widely shared on TikTok, with one viral clip receiving nearly 11 million views. We got to nuke the core to restart it. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, that was a good movie. We need to find that material that guy made. Is that obsidian? Like, it looked like it was made out of obsidian from Minecraft, that ship they were in. The core is what the movie's called. First of all, we should maybe talk about the Adam and Eve story. So the Adam and Eve story is something that it's a book that was written by a guy named Chan Thomas. He was a real guy. I think he was an engineer, maybe an electrical engineer. He was a smart dude. He was on Johnny Carson. Like, he was fairly well known. He was like one of these kind of alternative researchers, still educated individual and not an idiot. Back in the 60s, in the CIA, for whatever reason, classified the book and then sanitized it. But so they released it a couple decades later. I think they thought it would cause panic if people read it, just because of the way that he wrote it and the fact that he did write it quite well, although he put forward some crazy stuff in there, obviously. That's no doubt he did. But he was kind of synthesizing a lot of different ideas, like, catastrophists kind of claims. He didn't mention Velikovsky, but I think some of his stuff was implied, and then he tied Hapgood together and created this kind of narrative potentially for what happens periodically on the planet. But it's not like, and I get where these people are coming from to some degree, because people have been referencing this story and they're like, oh yeah, the CIA classified it and it's, it must be true. It's like, well, no, it's not that simple. And I mean, although some of the stuff he's citing in here could in actual fact end up being true to some degree, this isn't some kind of like Bible of truth here that, like, again, this guy went kind of out of a specialization a bit, like branching into these different theories. And anyway, we'll continue through it. In reality, NASA reports that pole reversals when Earth's north and south poles swap locations, which take place over hundreds to thousands of years, not a mere 7 days, have occurred 183 times in the last 83 million years, and at least several hundred times in the past 160 million years. Plants and animal fossils from the period of the last major pole reversal don't show any big changes. Deep ocean sediment samples indicate glacial activity was stable. In fact, geologic and fossil record from previous reversals show nothing remarkable, such as doomsday events or major extinctions. Additionally, there's no evidence in any magnetic excursion events, periods of shorter lived but significant changes in magnetic field's intensity has impacted the Earth's climate within the last 2.8. So again, okay, these I take that back. These people writing this article are fucking stupid. I was gonna use another word that's not as friendly. They're fucking. They've just confused. They've confused what we're talking about here. So what Joe asked Jimmy was about magnetic pole reversals. What Jimmy then told Joe, which was in the Adam and Eve story, it describes a physical pole shift. Then these people have come back and said, the NASA reports that pole reversal, magnetic pole reversals, which in fact probably do happen more frequently than we knew. And could it be disruptive? Potentially. But this is completely conflated. So, I mean, this is already not looking good for them. Additionally, there's no evidence. We just read through that. Corsetti acknowledged this, but claimed that scientists don't know what they're talking about. I was that brazen. I mean, but scientists, like what people in science, What does he mean? Rogan has previously drawn criticism for leveraging his massive reach and influence to amplify climate denial. And his podcast is catered to guests such as Michael Schellenberg and Bjorn Lomborg, who use cherry-picked and decontextualized talking points to downplay the devastating impacts of climate change and to attack climate solutions. Oh, yeah, these people are fucking stupid. He has already hosted figures who downright deny the fact that fossil fuel consumption is driving climate change. That's just Steve Koonin, Jordan Peterson, Randall Carlson, who has appeared on the podcast at least 6 times and said that carbon dioxide is not driving global warming, and that natural factors are more responsible than human actions. Randall Carlson took these climate people and just absolutely slapped the fucking cheeks right off them. Because what he actually did was he went and used science and scientists and people who studied the climate, but not to support this cult and this religion that it's man-made climate change. And he showed that periodically over the last couple thousand years, specifically the last 18,000 years, I guess, it's in meltwater pulses, there have been massive variances in climate and also CO2 emissions. And to think that we're having an effect to the degree that they claim that we are, it is just a cult, and it's nonsense, and it's political argument, and people making these kinds of claims are just absolutely, they're dumb, or they have an agenda, and there's some nefarious element involved. I'm Randall Carlson. He is my new motor that's fueled by feelings. yeah, poor Randall got kind of mixed up in something maybe that wasn't quite. That was a little bit too woo woo, but his research is impeccable. I mean, that guy has fucking a catalog of every single paper about climate related stuff and catastrophist stuff going back to like 1970s. Like he's followed this close. Like I would love to see these people writing this article get into a debate with that man. The floor would just they'd be wiped clean. He'd wipe their cheeks clean. Yeah, anyway, in discussion, I don't want to start reading the rest of this because it's just so fucking dumb. In their discussion of the Adam and Eve story, Rogan and his guests also downplayed the impacts of climate change millions of people are experiencing and praised Donald Trump for suggesting that the earth is actually cooling. Yeah, well, I mean, the whole climate gate thing, I mean, are these people ridiculous? Anyway, that stuff just fucking sets me off. It's so ridiculous. Climate gate essentially was an admission that they were manipulating climate data, some of these people in this cult, to try and fit their narrative, right? So essentially, all these dickheads, these multi-millionaire, billionaire dickheads can play with climate credits and act like they're these virtue signaling fucking saints. Or they virtue signal like saints that, oh, we're going to save the climate. Yeah, we're reducing our emissions. Yeah, fucking right. Yeah, no, you're not. Rogan then, while they fly around on their huge private jets, complaining that all these peasants are driving too much and need to buy bikes. I agree that the climate stuff's all bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. It's a narrative fueled by these globalists to try and push people into this slavery. It's literally what it is. It's nonsense. And again, I'm not a fucking climate scientist, but I'm also not an idiot. So there you go. Rogan then cited Carlson saying, global warming's not scary. It's global cooling. That's what's really scary. The host further suggested that climate change is this narrative that just gets repeated over and over and over and over, and this fear mongering, everyone gets freaked out. It's not to say that we aren't polluting. We certainly are. That's true, and it's not to say that we shouldn't improve. We certainly should, but if the fucking magnetic poles shift and we might get hit by a giant rock from space, we might have bigger problems. If we're going to be concentrating on nonsense, which is really par for the course of human beings, we're going to be concentrating on these things we're not really going to fix over the short term when something might happen that makes all of it moot point. Yeah, well said. Media Matters also identified 2 viral clips in this exchange with TikTok with 2 million and 2.6 million views, respectively. But Media holy Christ, Media Matters. Man, you guys. Who are these people here? Ilana Berger and Abby Richards. I have to see who these people are. I don't see anything about, well, Abby, what do you do? What do you do? Okay, it's just fucking smooth brains. What is the Adam and Eve story? The book was written in 1965 by Chan Thomas, worked in the aerospace industry. That's true, and claimed to be a psychic. The book was not available to the public until 2013. However, 57 pages were released by the CIA, and the censorship has captured the imaginations of conspiracy theorists. since its declassification. Just be clear here. People have read the book. I mean, it's just all of this rhetoric to like paint people under these brushes, right? That the people in these kinds of cults do, right? I mean, it's captured the imaginations of conspiracy theorists. Now, people read the fucking book and thought, oh, that's interesting. Some people have ran with it maybe farther than they should have, but as they admitted here, some people said Chan Thomas didn't even exist. No, he's a real dude, because people, other than these idiots, actually did fucking research on him and dug that up. The Earth's magnetic pole shift every several thousand years, causing a cataclysmic event, tsunami, destroy civilizations, and drastic alters Earth's geology. One example used was the flood in Noah's Ark narrative. Chan predicted such an event would occur in the near future, and some are now framing increasingly extreme weather events such as hurricanes, floods, and droughts as evidence that the next cataclysm is approaching. We can get into that, but they won't like to have that conversation, I promise you that. A TikTok account for a podcast called No Regulars posted a March 1st video that has been viewed nearly 18 million times, in which host Darius Watkins says that the book's explanation of cataclysmic magnetic pole shifts actually makes sense in describing climate change, and explains a lot, because the Sahara Desert used to be green, and like Antarctica used to have forests. So now, like, some places turn cold, some places... And that's a good fucking point, actually. How did that happen? And then you look, as Jimmy's brought up, there appears to be a lot of trauma in northern Africa. And it's suspiciously, that whole area looks very traumatic, even down through the Middle East, right? So kind of the whole area where Noah potentially was living, right? And that massive flood just so people know this, every single ancient culture on planet Earth, like established ancient culture, so North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, they all have flood stories. All of them. And they also all have pantheons of gods who came down from the sky and interacted with them, made them, interacted with them, bred with them, taught them. Wow. Maybe there's something more to that. But in regards to the flood myth, something clearly happened. And then there may be some evidence of this in Northern Africa. This is very new, and this is not something that, there's no consensus on this, right? So, because it's science, there's like, every single scientist kind of has their own opinion of what they're doing. So this is something that's new, but that's a very good point that they brought up. Yeah, there may be shifts, right? Climate misinformation disguised as ancient civilization. Oh, this is going to be good. At the time Thomas wrote the Adam and Eve story, the public at large was not informed on the consequences of anthropogenic climate change. Despite fossil fuel companies being aware of the potential for human-caused global warming as early as the 1950s, people weren't yet experiencing the ecological effects of increasing temperatures. But when the book was declassified in 2013, it was released into a world grappling with the dire effects of climate change. While it was not written to provide an alternative explanation for climate change, the Adam and Eve story provides a framework for interpreting its effects outside of the anthropogenic explanation. This narrative, which shifts blame away from our fossil fuel economy onto planetary forces beyond human control, can serve as a climate misinformation. Just to be clear here, I mean, so their whole narrative, right, is that, yeah, our use of fossil fuels is driving a greenhouse gas effect, which then is raising the temperatures, which is melting the ice caps. And now these people have gone so far because there's been an increase in volcanism and earthquakes over the last couple decades. It's been noticeable. And they just finally started admitting this now. What's probably happened is people working in these areas have finally collected enough data to say definitively this has been increasing, right? And their explanation, these people on this climate cult, their explanation for that is, because humans have melted the ice caps and that's taken pressure off of the crust, and then that's why this volcanism's increasing. It's like, holy fuck. Like anything and the problem is this all stems from these globalist assholes, right? That are trying to, get us to have these passports so that they're going to, and digital, central bank digital currencies. They're trying to herd people into these little cities with no cars, so that they bike everywhere. Like there's and then what these globalist people, these globalist idiots have done, these multi-billionaires that run the world have done, is they've got scientists on their payroll, and then they've convinced these people, who get caught up in all this, that this is all real. right? And these people clearly don't even know how to really interpret the data. I mean, I don't think these people are scientists writing this, because they've already confused these two narratives, i.e. physical pole shift and magnetic pole shift. So I'd imagine they've clearly confused some other things, right? The interpretation of reality, I think, a little bit. Let's continue reading through this. Piff, Big Tobacco could do it. Why can't they? Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I mean, look at Al Gore's fucking, I remember that. What's it called again? Al Gore's fucking movie. Oh, my God. I have to look it up. Al Gore, climate. An Inconvenient Truth. Yeah. No, it wasn't. No. While it was not written to provide, did I ever read that? Okay, yeah. Rogan's guests and their prominence of this conspiracy theory purport to be interested in its ramifications for scientific understanding of ancient civilizations, but climate misinformation often serves as a backdrop for their discussions. At one point in their interview, Rogan suggested that there was an incredibly sophisticated technology that existed and was wiped out, and that we're talking about a really advanced civilization that lived a long time ago that's more advanced than we are today, but moved in a different direction, like we moved in the direction of combustion engines and electronics, and they moved in some other direction, but achieved maybe many thousands of years ago more sophistication in that direction than we have with our internal combustion engines. Yes. An inconvenience meme. While climate change may not take center stage in these speculations, the implications that humans are not having an influence over our warming planet and that near-apocalyptic events are always inevitable as a result of natural cycles in the Earth's magnetic field are nonetheless harmful misinformation that lets politicians and fossil fuel companies off the hook for their role in the climate crisis. This is just so fucking stupid, man. Like, oh my fucking God. Like, this set me off hard, this fucking article here. Like, none of it is misinformation. This article is misinformation. This article is unbelievably biased misinformation. Like, holy fuck. The argument now that people are coming at like Graham Hancock with, because he was saying, oh, well, maybe there's this other race of people or this other group of people who are more advanced than us that were interacting with ancient cultures, and they had more advanced technology, and they were the ones that made the pyramids, maybe, or they made these, and these people have come back and said, oh, well, you're a fucking racist because you're saying that these people couldn't build this. Like, that's their argument. This is the level of smooth that we're dealing with here. Like, no. They couldn't physically fucking do it. It's not racist, right? They couldn't do it. They didn't even say they could do it, right? The Egyptians, there's nowhere really in Egyptology, and I've looked into this, where they state explicitly they built the Giza Plateau. There's potentially something that implies that they worked on it, but they never even had any, there was never any mummies found, nothing found ever in the Giza Plateau. So those three large pyramids, right? The Great Pyramid of Giza. There was never anything found inside of it. And any engineer that's walked in there has realized pretty quickly, you can Google a guy named Christopher Nunn. There's a Giza power plant. He's brought a lot of engineers in there, and they've all walked in and said, oh, fuck, right? So this is science, real science, right? Not like, groupthink, bullshit, like these people are trying to, engage with here. So reject tribalism, embrace Sigma schism, I'd say. yeah, exactly. And it's literally what this is, an example of tribalism. It's just nonsense. Cataclysm narratives as climate sedatives. Fuck it. This is the end of it, so we'll fucking just read it. Narratives that frame climate change as an inevitable disaster caused by forces beyond our control are a key argument of climate denial. If climate change is caused by changes in the Earth's magnetic field, then there is no point in implementing sweeping action to curtail fossil fuel emissions. No. They used to grind mummies up to make paint. It was called Mummy Brown before they were protected history. Shit. Fuck. Did they snort the mummies too? In the past, the Earth's orbit, the sun, and cosmic rays have all similarly been used to provide alternate explanations for climate change. Yeah. They have been. And they definitely, I mean, you really not... Just think about this for a second here. Just take a second and just fucking... Let's just think about this. So, they're saying that the sun couldn't be a cause, potentially, for climate change. So, the giant fucking star at the center of our solar system that bombards the planet every day with radiation, right, couldn't be a potential cause of climate change. I mean, this is... We're dealing with the epitome of stupid here. There is overwhelming scientific consensus that climate change is caused by burning fossil fuels. No, there isn't. No, there's potentially evidence that it has some effect. But so do volcanoes. And there's a lot of volcanoes going off. And you'd have to get the data up on this. Why disable the soundboard? Oh, yeah, no. Sorry, my thing's off right now. You have to listen to me talk. Yeah, fuck, sorry. I get fucking lost now. The only way to increase social... The only way to avert increasing social, political, and ecological effects of climate change is by transitioning away from a fossil fuel economy. But then we're going to transition away from a fossil fuel economy into what exactly? Into electric cars, because the power grid can't handle that. And all of these climate change people are shutting down the nuclear power plants because they're concerned about them. So then what do? We all ride bikes. We sing Kumbaya. I just wanted David Childress' interesting theory. Yes, we'll play it in a bit. Despite its appearance as a conspiracy theory about ancient civilizations, the Adam and Eve story is being used to undermine the scientific consensus. There's no fucking scientific consensus on this. There's tons of legitimate educated scientists who completely disagree with this fucking narrative. So, I mean, this is the biggest load of horse shit I think I've ever fucking read in my entire life. As TikTok ramps up the enforcement of its new climate change misinformation policy, the platform should account for the ways climate change denial is often incorporated into seemingly harmless conspiracy theories. Man, I think what we need is a mandatory re-education program for people that are this stupid. TikTok ramps up the enforcement of its new climate misinformation policy. And you hear things like this and you just think that these people are too far gone and we need to go live in the woods and communes. No. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous. There's no fucking consensus. There is no consensus. There's some consensus maybe among a group of people that are compromised and that are a part of a narrative that doesn't really make any fucking sense, or are willing to themselves shift their perspective potentially to broaden, their horizons to the potential reality. There's another cause to it, aside from us driving around in our Jeeps and whatnot. But listen, first, let's ground all flights, all private chartered flights, billionaires, Klaus Schwab, Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, stop flying your planes. That will put out way more carbon emissions than cars. So we got to ground all those fucking idiots first. So we'll accept Nibiru or Vashot. Yeah. Isn't that maybe though? I'd love to have a conversation with these people about that, right? Walk them through some history here. Paint them another picture. I would love to just, if they didn't sleep for a couple days, I would feel like I did my job. Although I probably wouldn't even listen to anything I'm saying because they're a part of this cult and, they're not going to pay attention to any other kind of fucking perspective. Finally, Spotify still has no clear policy regarding the promotion of climate misinformation on its platform. It reportedly paid $200 million for exclusive rights to Rogan's show. Thank God, yes. A free and open platform where people can go on and talk about their theories and, that's really what we need. Unfortunately, these people aren't interesting enough to be on Rogan. It's expected to expire in 2023. Spotify will have to decide whether platforming is misinformation and hate speech. Oh my fuck. Okay. Anyway. So we've come to the conclusion that these people are fucking idiots. Jimmy said, what do you say here? 37 years at NASA Langley, CIA research, impressive. So somebody that was involved with researching this works for the CIA. Interesting. Wow, that article really hurt my head to read. Jimmy. God damn it. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you're enjoying that video, give me a like and a subscribe. You can check out my stream. I'm live on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights on my podcast. You can check out all the links below. Thanks.